This week at Starbase, SpaceX continues to upgrade Pad 1 while preparing for Flight 13 from Pad 2. And over at the Cape, will the first Florida Mechazilla soon come to life? Well, let's jump in and find out. Starting off with this week's fabrication updates, on Friday afternoon, the first section of Booster 21's methane stack was moved out of Star Factory. Later that night, the article was taken into Megabay 2 as SpaceX prepares to start stacking operations for the second part of this next Super Heavy. Moving to the launch complex on Monday and Tuesday, a pair of valve skids were lifted and lowered into position at the tank farm. This new hardware was installed near the new cryogenic tanks that were delivered last week as SpaceX continues to build out the farm to service both pads. Meanwhile, up above, a crane was hooked up to the hydraulic actuator on the Pad 1 ship quick disconnect arm. It still remains to be seen how extensive the upgrade work on the arm will be to bring the original Starship pad up to the current standards. A load of what appeared to be vent stacks were delivered to Starbase, likely for installation at the under-development air separation plant near the launch complex. Across the street at the pad, the old electric bunker was demolished, making way for more up-to-date infrastructure. The next day, an excavator could be seen moving dirt just a little way up the highway in front of the tank farm. And just a few hours later, another excavator, this one with a hydraulic breaker attachment, got to work demolishing the wall just behind. This wall was a safety barrier separating the old, now removed methane tanks from the public roadway. In the early hours of Thursday morning, 2 more horizontal cryogenic storage tanks were brought up Highway 4 from the port of Brownsville as SpaceX continues to add more capacity to this expanded farm. Later that morning, we could see that the pedestals had been put in position for these new tanks. Shortly after lunch, the tanks were slowly rolled into their spots and lowered onto the waiting pedestals. Heavy equipment on the ground was used to haul open the chopsticks at Pad 1, likely to make way for work on the ground below. On Friday, wall sections for the Pad 1 flame trench were delivered to the launch complex. These sections are being stored nearby to await installation while excavation of the trench is ongoing. The Pad 1 hardware kept rolling in as a pair of smaller argon tanks rolled past the build site on their way to the launch pad. The convoy continued with a load of steel tubing, possibly reinforcements for the shortened Pad 1 chopsticks as part of their new revamp for Block 3 launches. Moving on to the week's testing-related activities, on Monday, SpaceX utilized a rolling road closure to relocate the booster cryogenic proofing and puck-shucking stand from the build site to the Massey Outpost. That evening, the Pad 2 deluge system was tested, flooding the flame trench with water. The test was then repeated late the next afternoon. The ongoing testing of this system suggests that SpaceX might believe its performance during Flight 12 left room for improvement. Also on Tuesday, at the Massey Outpost, the Ship 39.1 test article was put through a fresh round of testing. This marked at least the 16th time the tank was loaded with cryogenics, while SpaceX ensures their designs will perform as expected. Testing continued at Pad 2 on Wednesday with another 2 activations of the deluge system. Given the amount of water required for each of these tests, it's impressive that SpaceX is able to reset and retest this system so many times with relatively short turnarounds. SpaceX also performed some tests with the Pad 2 chopsticks that afternoon, making sure the arms will be ready for catching in the near future. While a water landing is still expected for the next launch, SpaceX's goal of monthly launches following Flight 13 means that they don't have time to waste getting the hardware ready. That evening, the Massey Outpost joined in on the action as the water deluge system at the ship's static fire station was activated, verifying it's good to go for Ship 40's upcoming engine testing. On Thursday and Friday, we saw several more tests of the Pad 2 deluge system. The tests were of varied length, some short and others appearing closer to full duration, and even one that looked to be aborted just as it started. It could be that SpaceX is testing ways to shut the system down quicker in case of last-second launch aborts. Currently, SpaceX has said that once the system activates, an abort would cause them to stand down for the day to reset. These tests could be attempts to find a way to reset without needing a day to refill the system. Also on Friday, the large crawler crane at the launch pad was hooked up to the extension on the end of the Pad 1 ship quick disconnect arm. Either there was an issue or it was just a fit check as it was later disconnected. Given the way it was connected, however, it appears that the extension may be removed in the coming days. Over on the Space Coast on Saturday, work was underway at the Launch Complex 39A Starship Tower, with crews working to reeve the cable from the drawworks through the crown and traveling blocks and to the deadline anchor. With this installation finally underway, we could see the arms moving up and down the tower in the very near future. On Wednesday, the IB-proofing test structure was lifted and installed in the 39A launch mount. This device, previously seen for the commissioning of the Pad 2 launch mount at Starbase, is used to test and verify that the booster hold-down arms on the mount are functioning properly. And there you have it, another Starbase and Starship update brought to you by Avid Space. Stay tuned for our upcoming spaceflight news update later on in the week, and if you haven't already, make sure you hit those buttons that keep you updated with our new content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.